Every animal has a role to play. Every fungus, every insect, every predator. Even every scavenger contributes to something much larger than itself. Throughout Frog Week, we've explored the stories of Pennsylvania's frogs and toads in the wild. But here, in the PA Woods Vivarium, we can slow down and watch the same ecological principles unfold every single day. Today, we're looking at two of ecology's most important ideas: ecological niches and the carrying capacity. These ideas shape everything happening inside this ecosystem and will determine how this vivarium continues to grow in the years ahead. An ecological niche is the role a living organism plays within an ecosystem. It includes what it eats, where it lives, and how it behaves, and how it interacts with every other organism around it. The American toad is one of the primary predators inside this ecosystem. Night after night, they patrol the forest floor, searching for insects, worms, and other invertebrates. By feeding on these animals, they help to regulate their populations and become an important aspect of maintaining balance inside the vivarium. Aside from the role these animals play in the ecosystem, both Ananias and Junia have had a fierce rivalry ever since they've been placed inside this enclosure together. This is one of the most competitive and hostile enclosures that I've ever seen with American toads, each one trying to become the dominant animal, wanting to control all of the resources, the food dish, the water area, and anything else that moves into the tank. The battle currently between Ananias and Junia has simmered a little bit, as Ananias appears to have taken an even stronger hold over the top spot, controlling all of the resources. But it doesn't stop Junia from still trying to push him, and every season's different. On any given day, any of these American toads can outperform the others, and we could have a new leader inside this enclosure. So it's very important that every interaction is taken seriously. It's very important the American toads hunt down and consume all of the grasshoppers and crickets that live inside the enclosure. If they don't, they risk the opportunity the crickets and grasshoppers have of consuming all of the vegetation and leaving the tank bare bones. As they're on the patrol, it's very clear to see the grasshoppers and crickets are very aware of the American toad's presence. If you remember Frog Week 2025, the interaction was very difficult for the American toads trying to catch the grasshoppers. It didn't seem to be the case a year later. This time around, Ananias made light work of the grasshoppers. He was undeniable on the hunt this year. Another ecological concept that's important is the carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is the maximum number of individuals an environment can support over time without exhausting its food, water, shelter, and other resources. Every ecosystem has limits. Even if resources appear abundant today, populations cannot continue to grow forever. Our American toads may eventually reproduce inside this vivarium. If that happens, difficult decisions will have to be made. Can this ecosystem support more toads? Would additional predators place too much pressure on insect populations? Would food remain plentiful enough for every animal? These are questions that the carrying capacity helps us to answer. One thing I can tell you, monitoring these animals out in the field and even visiting some of the populations where Ananias and other American toads are native to, I understand a little bit more throughout the seasons how American toads occupy space being nomadic. This is an artificial setup. They don't have the ability to travel miles like they would in the wild. However, even in that couple miles that they travel, they would face competition with other frogs and toads and other predators, not only being hunted themselves, but having to hunt and compete with one another. That's why the competition inside this enclosure is so important to avoid obesity, but also to monitor, so there's no bullying and there's no situations that take place that the animals unmercifully suffer. We find that ecological balance, understanding the carrying capacity, is what's the most important part when having even a large ecosystem like this. If we put too many American toads inside here, disease, waste, and a lot of competition could cause problems for these American toads.
I think Ananias has had enough of that. Wow, I've never seen him do that before.
The PA Woods Vivarium is 242 gallons, over 6 feet long, 23 inches wide, and 30 inches tall. Despite having such a massive enclosure, my hot take, I guess, for Frog Week would be maybe 4 adult frogs and toads living inside this at all times. There used to be a female wood frog, shout out to Esther, who was once inside this enclosure with these 3 American toads. Sadly, she passed away last year, just after Frog Week 2025. However, that does open the opportunity for one more rescued frog or toad joining these guys. But that's a story for Season 3 of the Woods Uncut. Right now, it's time for an isolated thunderstorm to enter the PA Woods Vivarium. After a good rainstorm, it's fun to see how the American toads disperse like they would in the wild. Usually, dry weather keeps them cooped up under logs, rocks, and debris. Once we get a good rainstorm, it's time, as the forest becomes moist and humid, to disperse, looking for prey items, a new place to live and hunker down in case it gets dry again soon, and just enjoying life overall. This time of the year, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet of caterpillars and moths, as they're one of the most abundant prey items on the forest floor throughout the summer months. The cover animal of Frog Week 2026, Junia, graces us with her presence as she hunts caterpillars on the forest floor. It almost seemed as the stars aligned for Junia being the cover animal of Frog Week 2026, being from Fayette County, and us adding that and having it as the featured episode of Frog Week 2026, it seems like it all fell into place for the project and for the cover animal. We also have to talk about the ecological niche and carrying capacity. If we were going to add another predator, would that harm the ecosystem and jeopardize the rule of Ananias II? If somebody were to enter these lands, they're going to have to compete at a very high level. Ananias and Junia are not going to hold back, and they're not going to feel sorry for anybody. They'll welcome them into this ecosystem at a very high intensity that these animals would probably have experienced in the wild. And judging by his activity level, it doesn't look like Ananias II is going away anytime soon. We did have another inhabitant that doesn't live inside these lands, but also is a major part of the carrying capacity and ecological niche of the PA Woods Vivarium story. Introducing the black field ants, the united colony. These little critters are very important. They're going to be one of the featured prey items for the American toads. In an ecosystem, not every organism occupies the same niche. Our black field ant colony fills a completely different role. Rather than waiting for prey to wander past, the colony works together to gather food, recycle organic material, and return nutrients back to the ecosystem. Watching hundreds of workers cooperate demonstrates an entirely different survival strategy than the solitary American toad. Even a dead hornworm still has a purpose. Within hours, the ants begin dismantling the insect piece by piece, attempting to carry it back into the nest. They carry nutrients back into their colony, where they will help feed larvae, workers, and eventually future queens. Nothing goes to waste. When we think about the ecological niche and carrying capacity, the same principles apply to our ant colony. For the united, as their population continues to expand, they have nearly reached their carrying capacity of their current nest. Rather than limiting the colony's growth, we'll soon be giving them a much larger home, where they can continue expanding naturally. Just like only a number of American toads can live inside the PA Woods Vivarium, only a certain number of black field ants can live inside this ant colony before it becomes a problem. Before their numbers become so explosive that they have nowhere else to put their waste, they have nowhere else to move, and they would eventually start to starve each other off. Before any of that happens, we do have a new enclosure. But as you can see, this ant colony, 4 years in the making, has finally reached a population large enough that we feel comfortable introducing them as feeder insects for the American toads and quite possibly other creatures if their population is suitably large enough. We don't want to cause a crash or any harm to the black field ant colony. The united is a pet more so than anything else. They've been with us through a lot. And these black field ants aren't going anywhere. As we watch the fog rolling in and nightfall taking place inside the PA Woods Vivarium, a lot of this was inspired from the actual ecosystem where these animals had been rescued from. Watching the rolling fog and seeing the nighttime bluish purplish view all around brings me back to being out in the field over these past 8 years. It's truly incredible to sit there and look inside the enclosure and have memories of all the animals that have been documented and filmed over these past 8 years. It's truly one of the coolest sights, and it's also artificial stimulation and enrichment for these animals, whether they see the moonlight or literally the full moon rotating at the ceiling. It's one of the coolest things that I've had the chance to showcase. And that's not the only thing. The mushrooms tell another chapter of the story. Unlike the predators or the ants, fungi serve primarily as decomposers. They break down dead organic material, recycle nutrients into the soil, and help create conditions that allow plants and microorganisms to thrive. Without decomposers, ecosystems eventually become overwhelmed with dead material, and life depends just as much on decomposition as it does on growth. As we get a chance to see the oyster mushrooms that did in fact come up inside the PA Woods Vivarium, it's very important to understand that they might hold another secret. As blue oyster mushrooms neutralize nematodes inside the soil, it is possible that their fruiting might be the alarm system to understand that there might be parasitic nematodes inside the soil that are impacting the American toads. And at the end of the day, it makes a lot of sense. Historically and culturally, toads are often seen hanging out around mushrooms. What if there's even more of a reason for this than just the mushrooms having prey items and being a place to take shelter and hide? What if the mushrooms actually have an ability to neutralize parasitic nematodes that are in the soil, and sleeping under them is a way to guarantee that you're going to stay healthy in the wild? Just a thought, and something we might actually explore in future episodes. I haven't forgotten about the United Colony becoming a prey item for the American toads. That was the goal during Frog Week 2026. However, finding a way to get the black field ants into the PA Woods Vivarium is half the battle. As I was putting out honey traps trying to get the ants to take the bait so I could close the container on them and then release a handful at a time in, they were a little bit smarter than I anticipated. The black field ants, the United Colony, understood that I was trying to trap them, and only a couple workers at a time would go up to the honey and try to eat. It wasn't enough for me to actually have a substantial battle between the black field ants and the American toads. I guess that's something we have to look forward to during Season 3 of the Woods Uncut. I do want to thank you for watching this season for Season 2. This is the establishment of our flagship show, and this is the season finale for Season 2 of the Woods Uncut. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for watching Frog Week and the Woods Uncut. Please consider liking and subscribing and sharing with your friends for more Frog Week content in the next season for the Woods Uncut. Thanks.